All right, welcome back to Sunrise City. Still coming to you live from Kaduna State, where the Kaduna Investment Summit, the fourth edition, 4.0, basically, it's going on. And now we've got Mohammed Abdullahi, who is the Commissioner for Budget and Planning here in the studios. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you for having me.
So, Kaduna Investment Summit, I know you've been budgeting and planning ever since it started up until now. In terms of what the state set out to achieve, you've seen the figures. How close or far away would you say the state is?
Well, thank you very much once again, and welcome to Kaduna again, and thank you for joining us. This is the fourth time you've been here, and anyone that visits Kaduna can visibly see. I mean, you don't have to go through the reports or the data. Just simply by the number of traffic that's building now in Kaduna, the number of businesses that have been springing up in Kaduna, the amount of jobs that we've been creating over the last 3-4 years is really testament to the fact that these events have been more than what we've set out to achieve, more than talk shops. They've been impactful. They have helped us to push the government agenda on an economic reform basis. We have seen the numbers tick up. We have been one of the only states that, despite a recession, has continued to chug on. Our GDP has continued to grow year on year. We're very detailed in terms of how we track these things. And so I am quite happy that today at the fourth edition, we're not only just talking about plans for the future, but what we're banking on is what has happened over the past as well. We have testimonies from reputable companies that are here today that are going to tell you about what it's like to do business in Kaduna. So for us, from a planner's perspective, we have wanted from the beginning to take Kaduna from a civil service state to make it a business-oriented state, a state that can become a haven, not only in the northern Nigeria, but in Nigeria as a whole, to become a place where people can come, people can work, send their kids to school, and a place where really the economy is thriving and supporting businesses.
Yeah, but if you say you want to take it from a civil service state to where businesses can grow, there are those who may think that Kaduna, well, who knows, sooner rather than later, may not necessarily depend on FAC to run the state.
Exactly.
How true or how close is that from the fact?
That is really, in fact, at the beginning when we came into government in 2015, the government depended about 85% of its revenues on federal allocations. This we saw as a huge risk because, as you know, the 70% of federal allocations are made up of petroleum profit tax, which is not determined within the shores of Nigeria, is determined externally. And so that's a key risk for any responsible government. And so we set out to divorce Kaduna from this level of dependency to the federal government. And we really invested a lot in terms of opening up our IGR. When we came into government in 2015, the highest IGR Kaduna had ever gotten was 14 billion. Right now, as of last year, we had hit 30 billion. This is a doubling of IGR, and we've consistently continued to grow year on year. The very first year we hit 22 billion. The year after that we hit 27. Now we're at 30 billion. And for this year what we're targeting is to hit 36 billion. Our ultimate target, given the economy of Kaduna State, is that we can make 55 billion given the number of current businesses that we have. And that is why we're very focused in drawing bigger businesses, newer businesses, in a way that they can come in, pay their taxes, hire workers that will pay their VAT, and grow the economy to a level where we can start hitting the hundreds of billions. And that's really our target.
Again, speaking about the figures, since you're the man with the figures, Nigeria, we're trying to see how we can get the country out of being the top country on the poverty index. How many would you say Kaduna State has been able to take out of poverty?
Well, directly, the businesses that we've developed, nurtured over the last 3-4 years have created over 100,000 direct jobs. But indirectly, you see, Olam alone is creating 300,000 indirect jobs. When we came in, if you go to Chukun and you pass Olam, the location that Olam was no man's land. It was nothing. There was nothing there. But today, when you're passing there, you have to slow down because it's become a village. It's becoming an economic center where you see trailers, where you see people with restaurants, where you see accommodation springing up.
So is that responsible for part of the traffic that you spoke about?
That definitely. Businesses, when they grow up, when they start to boom, people come back to the cities. People have more income. They buy more cars. And so when you come to Kaduna, when you got here in 2015, 2016, you could drive freely. Everywhere in Kaduna is 10 minutes away. Now you have to check out the routes because there is traffic, there are businesses that are growing, and we're struggling to catch up through transportation infrastructure, housing infrastructure, so we can see these numbers generally trending upwards. We're quite happy, but we're also struggling at an urban level to be able to build out our city in a way that accommodates all the new businesses.
So, but is there a specific figure that the state is targeting? We want to get this amount of people out of poverty on a sustainable basis.
Definitely. What we have today, that we're launching today, for example, is an industrial plan. That industrial plan targets 3.7 million industry-level jobs in Kaduna State. Now, if you look at the size of the civil service in Kaduna, it's less than 100,000, state and local government. We've already created 100,000 direct from private sector. Indirect, we're looking at 600,000.
Industry jobs?
Or
generally?
Businesses, entrepreneurs. We're building new entrepreneurs, we're building old businesses, we're reviving moribund industries. Now, our industrial plan targets 3.7 million jobs. That's what we want to do. And we're very targeted as what sectors we want to follow.
How many do you have?
Miners. Right now, we've created 100,000 direct. That's what I'm saying. Over the last 3 kind of invest, what we've calculated is these companies that we've brought in ourselves over the last 3-4 years have created 100,000 direct jobs.
In what sectors?
In agriculture, in mining, in motor vehicles, in assembly plants, in IT, in solar systems. These are things that people that you will meet today. They're physical. They're not just documents or statistics. In agriculture, for example, we have a young student that left Harvard and came to set up here in Kaduna tomato juice. She's doing fantastically well, moving from primary production to processing. If you go down the road to Akuri, you see Blue Camel Energy. They just yesterday graduated about 1,000 new solar electricians that are going to be manning a number of our healthcare centers, other businesses that are going to be working out. If you go up the road, it's Olam. There's businesses. Mahindra Tractors launched last year. Their assembling tractors is going to be one of the biggest assembly plants in Nigeria, and then we hope to compete favorably in Africa. So what we're really looking at is these long-term issues, but keeping the short term in mind.
I'm sorry, but I wasn't sure if I heard Ms. Uma say it was 5,000 direct jobs and perhaps 100,000 more indirect jobs. Is that a correction?
Definitely a correction, and you will see it in the governor's presentation today. He breaks it down sector by sector what we've done. So the governor will talk about it in detail in his presentation today, and it shows within Olam itself alone, direct jobs where it's more than 5,000. So I mean, just Olam, she was probably talking about just Olam, but what we've created is 100,000 direct jobs from these things, and then about 600,000 more informally, indirectly outside of these businesses.
Because we're asking very specifically, considering the fact that we have a youth bulge,
yes.
We've talked about how this can be an asset or a service, a liability, so to speak. We're wondering how much of an impact, how have you been able to perhaps half that or puncture it, so to speak, in Kaduna State to ensure that unemployment figures are down? What sort of impact are you looking to have on unemployment figures in your state, first and foremost?
We're very interested in the demographics of the state. We're approaching 10 million people in Kaduna today. About 70% of that is under the age of 35. What that means is that we have a very youthful population. Now, what that means is that the demand for schools, for jobs at sectors that are cutting edge, not the old sectors that are cutting edge, IT, telecoms, banking, for example, need to be opened up, need to be more. And so we have spent a lot of time targeting that. And if you go out across Kaduna today, we have a number of entrepreneurial programs happening. Because what we are sure of is that we cannot do government poverty eradication programs like used to happen in the past. In the past, when government wanted to eradicate poverty, what they would just do is open another ministry and absorb a huge amount of people. Governments today do not have those resources. The realities are completely different. And so what we need to do is to be able to train our people to build human capacity so that they can empower themselves. So we have Kaduna Startup Entrepreneurship Program, for example, that has graduated itself, just CAD step, over 5,000 young entrepreneurs that are doing very well. We've partnered with the Bank of Industry. They're getting loans of about 1 million to 10 million naira, depending on the strength of their proposals. We have a digital skills program that we're doing together with the World Bank and Rockefeller Foundation. We just launched the second cohort of that today, where hundreds of young people are signing up, to learn coding, to digitize their skills, to be able to get jobs across the world, not only in Kaduna. We've linked them up to platforms like Upwork, that you can be sitting here in Kaduna and somebody from China or Singapore sends you a job description and says, look, listen, can you do graphics designs? And you link up there, you have your account, it's a safe platform. And so we've linked them up to these platforms, and they're building income from home. So these are the things that we're really looking at in terms of poverty eradication. We're really, really into education. We think that that's the surest way up the social ladder, and that's what we're really investing in. And then opportunities, linking the big businesses up with the small ones in a way that creates a multiplier effect for the states.
Please talk us through your program in education, because I mean it's easy to mouth it, but what are the specifics as far as that is concerned?
Our program in education is quite simple. We want to be sure that your father's surname or your family background does not dictate where you end up in life. We are very sure that the responsibility of government is to ensure that there's a level playing field for everyone. And so what we try to do is right from the primary school level to ensure that the children of the poorest communities have the best teachers, have the best facilities. That's number one. Number two, when you move up the ladder, we want to ensure equity. We want to ensure that young girls have the same opportunity to go to school and stay in school as boys do. When we finish that, we want to ensure that for people that are transiting to tertiary education, that they are tooled up to ensure that they pass those necessary exams, SSC and WAEC. And I'm happy to say that within the last 3 years, we have moved Kaduna State. It is now number 1 in SSC examinations. That is an incontrovertible fact today. Kaduna is 12th in the nation in SSC, but number 1 in the north. And we want to move up to start competing with our brothers in the southwest who are at the top of the ladder. That's what we want to do in the next phase. Now, on the entrepreneurship scale, what we're doing is massive open courses, free to people of Kaduna State. From Kaduna Business School to Kada ICT Hub to the solar trainings, we're providing opportunities across all levels of skill. So it's not only for people that have gone to primary school and secondary school. We're looking at people in our villages, in our communities, and saying, look, can they not come and learn how to fix these solar panels? Can they not come and learn how to do POP? How to do menial mechanic works? We need to be able to skill our people. It's the only way for us to turn that youth bulge into a demographic dividend and not a curse.
While that is a given, one of the challenges that many institutions, including governments, have had is marketing their programs to the people. How do you communicate this in a way that the people can take ownership of it?
One of the, I think, paradigm shifts that we, and I include myself, had to go through was to understand that you need to communicate with people where they are, instead of trying to force them onto platforms that they are not. 80% of the people in Kaduna are on the radio. This is where they are.
Not social media.
They're not social media. In fact, only 9% of our people are on social media. So despite all the hullabaloo on social media, you're only targeting 9% if you stick to Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. 80% of our people are on radio, and so we have to meet them there. It is gradually that we hope, as internet penetration increases, that you're able to bring them on board. But the loudest people, of course, are on social media, but the majority of our people are on radio, so we follow them there. The next is TV. I think we have about 60% or 56% on TV, and so we also do some TV. Then we start moving up and it starts getting narrower. But then when you're targeting, for example, coding programs, your best bet is to target it on social media, because that's where they are. They're not on radio, because the young population is more tech savvy, and so you have to also meet them where they are. So we segment depending on what program we're doing or who we're targeting. We follow them to the channels that they listen to.
Let's take a look at some of your statistics right now. Yes, you are making some progress in terms of your internally generated revenue. Do you have a target?
We do. As I mentioned, we are moving on. We think that the economy as it is structured today, Kaduna can be making between 50 to 55 billion naira a year. We're currently at 30 billion as of 2018. We started off at 14. So we've made considerable progress, but there is still space to increase. Now this pace to add on is going to be really achieved by our continuous deployment of technology. It's the way that we target our tax people, and also closing up the social contract, ensuring that as people are paying, that government is also quick to respond to its services across a spectrum of services that we're delivering, whether it be healthcare, education, security, governance. We need to be able to not only provide the service, but to feed back to our people that this service has been provided because you have paid the tax. It has been made possible because you have done that. So we're currently in the space of closing that loop. It's not yet been done, and we think that by the time we're done with that you would see a lot more coming out. There will be a lot more willingness from people to pay.
In fairness to you, I mean, I haven't been to Kaduna in 2 years, and this time around, we've seen that the road from Regasa to the center of the city has now been done, which is a good thing, and there's even street lights. Because we came in at night, and it was important that people.
Even though some of the lights.
Even though the lights, can be questioned as to, the solar lights, the quality of the solar panels that were installed can definitely be questioned. But they were there nonetheless. You talked about traffic, and you said this is a result of the growth. One has to ask whether these things are not as a result more of indiscipline and a lack of planning for that sort of situation, rather than as a result of growth. Because someone will say, for those coming from Lagos, they'll say this is baby traffic. This is baby traffic caused by indiscipline, nothing more than that. What are you doing with regards to law enforcement, especially for a growing city like Kaduna?
Well, I think it is baby traffic when you compare to Lagos, but we're still happy with it. We're happy with it not only because it's about the roads, but our hotels. If you're coming to Kaduna today, and you do not book a hotel 2 days, 3 days before, I'm guaranteeing you that you're going to end up somewhere that you do not like. And this is as another result of the increased amount of people that are coming in. Every single week we have some program or the other, we have some delegation or the other, we have businesses that are moving from other states to come and set up in Kaduna. So we're quite happy with that. We asked, because you see the pace of delivery of infrastructure. If I decide to set up a business that employs 3,000 people today, I can set it up in Kaduna in the next month or so, because it's so easy to set up the business and your people can come and start working. But it's going to take us more as government to open up those new roads. It's going to take us more as government to build those new houses, because it takes time. Procurement processes alone, based on the law, take a time to mature. So I think what you're seeing is the time lag between government delivery of infrastructure and the willingness of businesses to come.
Infrastructure, yes. Businesses, yes. Security.
Yes. So let me talk
Big
about
question.
that. If you had come into this venue today, we have a local traffic management agency called Castellia, which is very, very effective. Their machinery, their equipment is top-notch, state-of-the-art.
What did you call them?
Castellia. Kaduna State Traffic Enforcement Regulatory Agency. Okay. They're outside, you see them with very nice looking uniforms and very weird looking cars. They're very, very well equipped. Young people that are running it, and they're everywhere across the state. They are doing a lot of traffic management.
We didn't see them yesterday.
We
didn't see them yesterday.
Well, I don't know what time you came in, but usually they're around. Traffic management in a state of 9 million people is not that easy, and it's 42,000 square kilometers. So with all respect, we're 6 times Lagos. We're 6 times Lagos. So the size of Kaduna.
Not half of Lagos is population.
Half of Lagos is
population.
Yeah, I don't have
population.
Yeah, in terms of landmass, we're 6 times Lagos.
Yes, but not the
2,000 square kilometers. No, but we have to be able to send officers not only to urban Kaduna, but also to across our local governments. We have local governments here that are 4 hours away from Kaduna urban.
Commissioner, sorry to interrupt you. Are you saying that, are you trying to excuse the fact that, coming into Metropolis from a place like Rigasa, which is now like one of your major ports, you're saying that the reason why we did not see any control is because people have been deployed to the hinterland.
No.
Where they most likely might not be able to
I'm not saying that. What I'm just saying is that you might have come in at a time when they were just not there. And we apologize for that, and that's something we continue to work on. But this is a process that we're managing right now. A lot of us are still grappling with some of these issues, and we're trying to be as cutting edge as possible. And I am sure that it still did not take you the same amount of time, for example, that it took me last time when I went to Lagos to get to VI from 6 hours to get from VI to the airport, and I had to get on a motorbike. Lagos has 30 billion naira a month to spend, but they're still managing these things.
It's a good thing the comparison has started, and I think that's why a lot of states, that's where Nigerians want the states to get to, where they're beginning to compare and contrast. But that said, you do know that oftentimes when one incident happens, it can ruin everything. And what people want is for Kaduna to move forward. Just the other day, I don't know, it was on Monday, we did hear that there was a kidnapping incident along the Abuja-Kaduna. When things like this happen, how does it affect your grand plan, for Kaduna in terms of business opportunities, making it a safe place to live? Does it affect the perception you get of Kaduna still being an unsafe place?
Well, I mean, it definitely does, and no responsible government wants to face insecurity challenges. In fact, the overriding responsibility of government is to secure its citizens. So we are very, very concerned about that. We are very, very sad that these things continue to happen. But we are trying our best, and we're continuing to partner with the federal government, which has the overall mandate for security. And even yesterday, the governor was out of the country, but he held a security meeting via teleconference and sat with the security agencies. We're doing a lot of deployment of technology. We have drones now. The president came about a month ago to commission our drones. We now have drones flying across these insecure areas to stem kidnapping. We have state-of-the-art tracking systems. We are doing a lot around that, but it is always sad when some of these things happen and we still have to respond, and that's something that we're doing on a more proactive basis rather than just being reactive.
Okay, sorry, Chimilin, you're in charge of planning, Commissioner for Budget and Planning. Moko talked the other time about the hinterlands and rural infrastructure. What's the plan to upgrade the roads in the hinterland, thank you, where the farmers are and they have to transport their stuff from the hinterland to the city?
I'm surprised if that question didn't come. For the hinterlanders.
Yes, I mean, it's my
it's the constituency.
I mean, I think it's a very good question. Last year in Kaduna, this same hall, what we launched was an infrastructure master plan, 32-year plan. And one of the things that we looked at, 32-year infrastructure master plan we launched last year, 2018 to 2050. One of the things that we looked at in that is the infrastructure deficits that we have in Kaduna across health, education, water, roads. All of these things, we not only looked at the gap, but we also quantified how much would it take for Kaduna to reach the level of a similar city-state somewhere in the world that is developed. We have 9 million people, approaching 10 million. We have 42,000 square kilometers. We have X number of young people. We have how many schools do we have, how many officers, and then what's the gap? And when we did the mathematics, we sat down with experts across a wide spectrum, and we did the math. And it came up to, within this 32-year period, we need to spend nothing less than 60 trillion to be able to get to a level of development that is international standard. Now, these are resources that we do not have. As government, as a subnational government, we do not have these resources. And so when I look at my pie as a budget commissioner, what I'm looking at is, okay, look, a gap of 60 trillion over 30 years. What part of that pie can government resources fill? And then what do we need to leverage on federal government? What do we need to leverage on the private sector? What do we need to leverage on our international partners? And this is why we're doing events like this today. It is to ensure that we're able to crowd in resources from other players, because we do not have the resources to do it. We need to be building 300 schools a year. We need to build nothing less than 10,000 kilometers per year for us to be reaching. Total in Kaduna today, we have 7,900 kilometers of road. We need to be incrementally increasing these to be able to reach all the hinterlands. So if you look at the long-term perspective, really, It's about resources and crowding the resources.
We'll take a further look at that 32-year master plan and some of the attendant concerns when we come back in a moment. Don't go away. Welcome back to Sunrise Daily, or talking about Kaduna Investment Summit. You know, when you talk about the state having a 32-year plan, I know that there are attendant challenges that need to make that work, but one challenge that we consistently have in this country, I don't know if we've come up with a suggestion or approach to it, is we know governments can change. We also know that in different climes, when governments change, political parties can come up with their plan, but they fit into the larger picture where the country is headed. In this case, it may not necessarily be so. What kind of consideration did the state give to that, such that your 32-year plan doesn't end up as a white elephant project midway into the plan?
Well, I think if you look at something around infrastructure, this is something that, regardless of party or political leaning, is going to continue to be a factor that leadership, any responsible leadership, is going to continue to aspire to be able to want to do roads, schools, hospitals, water points for its people. So the plan does not have an APC logo on it. It is a plan for the people of Kaduna. And we're hopeful that over the next 32 years and even beyond, that the people of Kaduna will continue to elect responsible people that will continue to want to deliver on the promises that they have made on infrastructure, for example.
So, are you basing that plan just based on hoping the people will keep doing that?
Well, I mean, that's, I think for me, we looked at issues around, for example, legislating it. But even when you legislate plans, and we've seen leaders that have gone to the assemblies or just ignored laws. So I think the most sustainable path towards any policy issue is to ensure that the people of the state own it and that they continue to demand that the leaders implement those plans. Laws, I mean, are, when you legislate, the budget, for example, is a law. But we've seen places where, across the country, where budgets are implemented 20%, 30%. That's a law. But it's only done halfway, consistently.
Yeah, but you know, because this is a challenge that a lot of people have talked about severally, not just on cameras, several places, you know. But whichever state gets it right, it may be a template for the country. You never know. So that's why I ask, has there been an approach? In what way has the government broached that topic, for instance, between other political parties? Because there are those who look from outside just think that there's this hostility between political parties. So if that hostility exists, there's no way that you can have this conversation.
What we have tried to do in our case is to ensure that whatever plan we're putting together has the widest range of input from all the stakeholders across Nigeria, across the state. So typically when we're doing any plan, we sit down with people from across all our local governments. That's number one. We sit down with the private sector. That's number two. We sit down with civil society. We sit down with our lawmakers. We try to ensure as much buy-in as possible, people inputting into the policy as possible. We do not close ourselves in the room, in my office, and assume that we're all experts, quote unquote, and then sit down and draft these plans. Every plan that we've produced in this state has had significant input from the people of Kaduna State. And really, to me, that ownership is your surest bet to ensuring that somebody continues to demand accountability from whichever leader is in power.
You know, I would like you to expatiate a bit more on this people ownership. It's something I've heard over and over and over again. But oftentimes, I'm a citizen in this country. And if you ask me, as a citizen of Nigeria, for instance, what the plan of the federal government is, and I'm speaking broadly, for the next 10 years, I most likely might not be able to tell you. And I'm a journalist, not because I don't want to tell you, but because I don't know what the plan is. I lived in Lagos another how many years of my life post-school. I'm sure Lagos has a plan. If you ask them, they'll tell you, we have a plan. You know, successive governors have built on that. And they want the people to own the plan. Even though, yes, there is, you can say there is a thread of some sort. The Lagosians have now begun to expect of their government. But in Kaduna, when you say that you're looking to people ownership, for instance, what does that mean? How are you getting the people to own the plan that you are, bringing up? How does an outsider know that the people indeed have taken a hold of the plans that the government has put in place?
Well, I mean, I think for us, Mape, the citizen distrust in government, not only in Kaduna, across Nigeria and across the world, is something that has been an established fact. Okay, for example, even in the US today, for example, if you look at the recent surveys by Pew Research or whatever, less than 30% of Americans trust the government. For Africa, probably less. If you look at Afrobarometer, I think only 30% of Africans trust any of their governments. So the way to build back public trust, and if you look at countries like Nigeria, where we've come from a significant amount of letdowns by governments in the past, military, transiting over to civilian. When you walk into a room as a government official, automatically 60% of the people in the room distrust what you're going to say. So if we do not continue and start to rebuild this fabric of trust between citizens and their government, then we have much larger problems going forward. And so for us, we try as much as possible. I mean, it's not perfect. I cannot guarantee you that every citizen you stop in Kaduna State today will say, Kaduna, I understand they have a plan, and I was an input to the plan. No. But we try as much as possible to reach out to organized groups, to reach out to informal settlements, to reach out to ensure that at least there is some level of representation. And we're hoping that when one person raises his hand and says, no, I have not been consulted, that two other people will say, yes, we were consulted. And that's where we want to get to.
All right, and that's where we anchor this segment. At the moment, Mohammed Abdullahi, Commissioner for Budget and Planning, the Kaduna State Government, talking about Kaduna Investment Summit 4.0. Thank you for coming on this morning. All right, we're back in a moment and take a look at some of the matters before we head down to the summit ourselves. Don't go away.